Welcome to Project Debrief. Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're diving into something pretty huge. Donald Trump's first day back as president-elect.
That's a big one.
Yeah, we've got a ton of articles and analyses to go through.
A lot to unpack.
So our mission today is to really try to break down this crazy first day back for you.
Absolutely. And I think one of the most interesting things is how quickly Trump got down to business.
Right.
Like no time wasted celebrating, straight to work.
Yeah, it seems like he's ready to hit the ground running.
He named Susie Wiles as his White House chief of staff.
That's right. Wiles.
Right out of the gate.
She was his campaign manager.
Exactly. Someone he clearly trusts.
Yeah. And not only that, she's the first woman ever to hold that position.
That's huge.
Talk about making history.
Definitely signals a strong start, I think.
It does. And it looks like he's really laser focused on pushing his agenda forward.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of those familiar themes.
Yeah.
Increasing oil and gas drilling, cutting back on regulations,
Right.
tightening border security.
All the things we were hearing about on the campaign trail.
Exactly, those core issues.
Yeah. And it looks like the world is taking notice.
Oh, absolutely.
He's been getting calls from world leaders all day.
It's like everyone's eager to see what this second term will bring.
Yeah. Prime Minister Modi from India.
Right.
He specifically mentioned wanting to strengthen ties with the U.S.
Yeah, that's a big one, especially with how important that region is becoming.
For sure.
And we're seeing calls from other leaders, too, like Benjamin Netanyahu in Israel, Volodymyr Zelensky in Ukraine.
Wow.
Even Xi Jinping from China.
It sounds like Trump is back on the world stage in a big way.
No doubt about it.
And, it's not just world leaders who are reacting.
Yeah, what about the markets?
The U.S. stock market seemed pretty optimistic, too.
There's definitely some positive movement there.
Yeah, like Tesla shares.
Oh, yeah.
They surged.
Elon Musk was pretty vocal in his support for Trump during the campaign.
He was.
So I think investors are feeling good about what this could mean for the tech sector. And it's not just Tesla. We're seeing gains across the board, especially in those industries, that could benefit from less regulation and more domestic energy production.
It seems like the business world is feeling pretty good about a Trump presidency.
I think that's a fair assessment.
But amidst all this excitement, there's also some news on the legal front that's got everyone talking.
Yeah, this is a big one.
It seems like Special Counsel Jack Smith is thinking about dropping the federal charges against Trump.
Really?
Possibly because of presidential immunity.
Wow, those cases.
Yeah, right?
The ones about challenging the 2020 election and those classified documents,
Yeah.
they could be completely dismissed.
It's a huge development that could have some major consequences.
Absolutely raises some important questions about accountability and power.
Absolutely. And then there's the whole symbolic transfer of power.
Oh, right.
President Biden has invited Trump to the Oval Office.
That's a pretty traditional gesture of goodwill.
It is. It's a visual reminder of that peaceful transfer of authority.
That's a cornerstone of American democracy.
It is. And Biden's team has already reached out to Trump's team.
Have they?
Yeah, they're urging them to sign those agreements to get the transition process going.
That's good to hear.
It is. It seems like both sides are committed to a smooth handover.
Yeah, putting the country first despite their differences.
Exactly.
So in addition to meeting with Biden, Trump also talked to a bunch of other world leaders on his first day. Well, he spoke with Prime Minister Netanyahu from Israel,
Right.
President Zelensky from Ukraine, and even had a conversation with President Xi Jinping from China.
Wow, so he's really hitting the ground running on the foreign policy front, too.
Seems like these early conversations are really important.
Yeah.
For setting the tone and building those lines of communication.
They could really lay the groundwork for future collaborations and agreements.
Exactly.
It feels like the whole world is watching to see what direction Trump will take the country this time around.
Yeah, and speaking of direction, his victory speech gave us some clues about his vision for the future.
What did he say?
Well, he laid out some pretty ambitious goals.
Okay, like what?
Like cutting energy bills in half within a year.
Whoa, that's a big promise.
It would require a pretty major overhaul of energy policy.
For sure. And what else?
He also talked a lot about getting rid of regulations that he sees as burdensome.
Right.
He thinks that'll boost economic growth and create jobs.
And of course, that America First message was front and center.
Absolutely. He's all about strengthening the nation's economy and its place in the world.
It seems like he's coming into this second term with a clear set of priorities.
Oh, definitely.
And a real determination to get things done.
I think that's a safe bet.
It's definitely an exciting time to be following American politics.
No doubt about it, there's a sense of anticipation in the air.
Totally.
Like we're at a crossroads with both challenges and opportunities ahead.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on all of this? What stood out to you the most about Trump's first day back?
Honestly, I'm really intrigued by these bold policy announcements
Yeah.
and how proactive he's being about talking to world leaders.
It does seem like he's ready to make his mark.
It does, and I'm curious to see where it all leads.
That's a great point. And before we move on to the specifics of his policies, I want to hear from you.
Okay.
What are you most curious about as we dig deeper into this historic moment?
Well, let's see, I think. It's interesting to see how the markets are reacting to Trump being back in office.
Yeah, you mentioned those Tesla shares earlier, but it's not just tech that's feeling good.
Right. Seems like there's optimism across the board.
Especially in those industries that could really benefit from Trump's focus on deregulation.
Exactly. And his push for more domestic energy production.
It's a clear sign that investors are feeling confident about Trump's economic plans.
I think so, too.
And speaking of energy, his promise to cut those energy bills in half.
Yeah, 50%.
That's a huge deal for a lot of Americans.
It shows he really gets the struggles people are facing with those rising costs.
And it fits right in with his whole plan to increase oil and gas production here in the U.S.
Absolutely. It's all about that America First idea and making sure the country has a secure energy supply.
Right. And it's not just energy.
No.
He wants to cut regulations across the board.
That's music to the ears of a lot of businesses, both big and small.
It is. He wants to get rid of all that red tape.
He says it's holding back innovation and job creation.
So he's hoping to unleash a wave of entrepreneurship and economic activity.
Exactly. More prosperity for everyone.
And I bet this whole economic empowerment thing will probably extend to his trade policies, too.
I would say so.
With that America First philosophy, I'm sure we'll see a more assertive stance on trade.
Probably making sure those deals protect American jobs.
Exactly, putting American workers first.
And speaking of economic policy,
Yeah.
what about ESG investing?
Oh, right. That's something Trump has been pretty critical of.
He sees it as a threat to American prosperity and individual liberty.
So for those who might not be familiar with ESG, it basically means taking into account things like a company's environmental impact or social responsibility.
Right, alongside financial returns.
And Trump's view is that those considerations shouldn't hurt investors' bottom line.
Exactly. He thinks investment decisions should be about what's best for the individual.
Not about politics or ideology.
Right. It's about protecting the interests of everyday Americans and their retirement savings.
This is a stance that's going to cause some debate, for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
But it shows how committed he is to putting American interests first, whether it's trade, energy, or investments.
Speaking of potential controversy, his stance on climate change is another area to watch.
Right. His skepticism of climate science and his focus on American energy independence.
That suggests a pretty different approach to environmental policy.
It does. It seems like economic growth and energy security are going to be his top priorities.
Potentially leading to some changes in environmental regulations.
This is a move that's going to make some people happy and others not so much. But it shows how he wants to balance environmental concerns with the need for a strong economy.
And this aligns with a conservative policy plan that's been making the rounds.
Oh, what's that?
It's called Project 2025.
Project 2025.
Yeah, it's been gaining traction among Trump supporters.
What is it all about?
Well, it was developed by the Heritage Foundation, and it lays out a whole roadmap for a potential Trump administration.
What kind of things does it propose?
Some pretty big ideas like streamlining federal agencies and maybe even restructuring some scientific bodies.
Sounds like a vision of a leaner, more efficient government.
That's the idea, one that prioritizes American interests and values.
And probably reflects some skepticism about big government.
Definitely, it's all about putting power back in the hands of the people.
Making sure the government serves the people, not the other way around.
Exactly.
And I imagine this focus on individual liberty and smaller government will probably extend to social and cultural issues, too.
Most likely, we can expect Trump to keep championing those traditional values.
Pushing back against what he sees as government overreach.
It's a vision of a society built on individual freedom and responsibility, where families and communities thrive, and American values are front and center.
So it's about protecting that American way of life.
And making sure there's a bright future for everyone.
And at the heart of all this is Donald Trump himself.
Love him or hate him.
Yeah.
You can't deny he's a force to be reckoned with.
He is a master communicator.
He knows how to connect with his supporters on a really deep level.
And he's a showman.
Always keeping us on our toes.
Always making headlines.
But beyond all that, he's a smart businessman and a skilled negotiator.
And those skills are going to be put to the test as he tackles all the challenges of a second term.
Domestically and internationally.
This is his chance to really solidify his legacy.
Prove his doubters wrong.
Make America great again.
His actions in this second term are going to define how history remembers him.
The decisions he makes,
The policies he puts in place.
how he handles crises and opportunities.
It all goes into the history books.
It's a big responsibility, but one that he seems ready for.
He's a guy who loves a challenge.
Who isn't afraid to shake things up.
And that's what makes him so interesting to watch.
His approach to politics is anything but conventional.
He's not afraid to break with tradition.
He's a disruptor for sure.
And this second term is probably going to be just as unpredictable and impactful as his first.
But beyond all the political drama,
Yeah.
we have to remember the real-world impact this will have on everyday Americans.
Absolutely. His policies will affect people's jobs, healthcare, education, their sense of security,
It's a responsibility he doesn't take lightly.
and one that we'll be following closely.
But before we get into all the potential consequences of his policies,
Okay.
I want to hear your initial thoughts.
Sure.
What do you think about Trump's vision for America?
It's a fascinating question.
What aspects of his agenda really resonate with you?
I'd love to explore that with you.
Great, because this whole deep dive,
Yeah.
it's about understanding this moment and helping you navigate this new era of American politics. It's definitely a lot to take in. We've talked about his policies, his leadership style, the reactions from world leaders and everyday Americans.
Yeah, and there's definitely a mix of excitement and apprehension.
For sure.
Some people are thrilled about the changes he's promising, while others are a bit more cautious.
Yeah, a little unsure about what those changes might mean.
It's understandable,
Change can be unsettling.
especially in politics.
Exactly, because it affects so many parts of our lives.
I think it's important to acknowledge those concerns,
Right.
but also to approach this new era with an open mind.
You're right. We can't let our preconceived notions cloud our judgment
We need to judge him based on what he actually does.
on the real-world impact of his policies
Exactly, and that's what we're here for,
to help you make sense of it all
to separate fact from fiction.
and understand what's really going on.
So we'll be looking closely at the policy debates
Analyzing those political moves,
and exploring the consequences of his decisions.
both here in the U.S. and on the world stage.
We'll be keeping an eye on everything,
From Supreme Court picks to trade deals.
immigration to energy.
No stone left unturned.
And we'll do it all with accuracy, a healthy dose of skepticism.
And of course, a little bit of humor along the way.
Because politics can get pretty intense.
It can. So buckle up, everyone.
Trump's back in the driver's seat.
And the world is watching,
And we'll be here with you every step of the way.
giving you the insights and analysis you need to understand this moment in history.
This deep dive has been quite a journey.
It has. We've covered so much ground, from those first reactions to Trump's victory to the early signs of his agenda.
We've talked about the potential challenges and opportunities.
The hopes and anxieties.
But as we wrap things up,
Yeah.
I want to leave you with something to think about.
Okay.
We've talked about the impact of his policies, the concerns about his rhetoric, the uncertainty that always comes with big political shifts.
Right.
But what about the potential for positive change?
That's a great question.
Could there be opportunities for progress in areas like the economy, technology, or even foreign policy?
Interesting.
Could Trump maybe even surprise some people by finding ways to bring the country together?
It's definitely a question worth considering as his second term gets underway.
Maybe there's more room for hope than we think.
And that's what's so amazing about democracy, isn't it?
It gives us second chances.
A chance to course correct.
And the possibility of redemption
It's a system that gives us the power to shape our own future,
by staying informed
engaging in thoughtful discussions.
and holding our leaders accountable.
We can make sure our voices are heard.
So as we finish up this deep dive,
Yeah.
I encourage you to stay curious, stay critical,
But most importantly, stay hopeful.
because the future isn't set in stone.
We create it together.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep the conversation going.